Identify the lower class limits, upper class limits, class width, class midpoints, and class boundaries for the given frequency distribution, and also identify the number of individuals included in the summary. Now the lower class limits are going to be the lower limit of each class. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes, and the lower limits are going to be the ones to the left here. So we have 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. Those are our lower class limits. Now the upper class limits are going to be the other numbers on the right hand side, and these are the upper class limits, starting with 199, 199, 299, 399, 499, and 599. Check our result, and there's our answer. Now we need to identify the class width. Well, the class width is subtracting two lower consecutive class limits. So we're going to take 200 and subtract 100. Well, 200 minus 100 is going to give us 100. So therefore, the class width is 100. Now we want to identify the class midpoints. Now the class midpoints is taking the lower class limit and adding the upper class limit of that class and dividing it by 2. So if we take 100 and then add 199, hit enter, and then we're going to divide that by 2. That gives us 149.5. Okay? Now, we could do the same thing to each one, or we can add 200 and 299 together and divide it by 2, or we can just add the class width now for each class midpoint. Now, once we find that first one, then we can just add 100 to that. So adding 100 to 149.5 is going to give us 249.5. Okay, adding 100 to 249.5 is going to give us 349.5. Adding 100 to 349.5 gives us 449.5. And adding 100 to 449.5 is going to give us 549.5. See that? 549.5. Now let's check our result. And there's our answer. Okay, now we want to be able to identify the class boundaries. Now, in order to find the class boundaries, okay, what we need to do is take the upper class limit of the first class, add the lower class limit of the next class, and then divide it by 2. So we're going to take 199 plus 200, and then we're going to divide that by 2. Okay, so that's 199.5. So that's a class boundary. Now, once we find that class boundary, now we're going to add the class width to each one of those. So 199.5 plus 100 is 299.5. 299.5 plus 100 is 399.5. 399.5 plus 100 is 499.5. 499.5 plus 100 is 599.5. And then 599.5 plus 100 is 699.5. Now, if you notice here, if you look at the first class, it goes from 100 to 199. Now, this is not going to be the lowest class boundary. And if you look here, 500 to 599, we already have one that goes beyond the 599, which is 599.5. So we don't want this number here. So again, if I check my answer, it's going to say it's incorrect. So what I want to do is I want to find out what this first one's going to be. So I'm just going to shift these all to the right here. So now this is going to become 599.5. This is 499.5, 399.5, 299.5, and 199.5. Now, how are we going to figure out what is this low class boundary? What is the first class boundary? Well, we just need to take this 199.5, and then we're going to subtract the class width, which is 100. And that gives us 99.5. So therefore, these are the class boundaries. Let's go ahead and check our answer, and there's our result. Okay, now we want to identify the total number of individuals included in the summary. Well, that's adding the total frequency. So therefore, let's go ahead and add that. We have 24 plus 91 plus 28 plus 0 plus 1, and that gives us 144. Let's put that in there, check our result, and there is our